Big Boy. In 1941, when Union Pacific 4000 emerged from the American Locomotive Company shops in Schenectady, New York, a shop worker had written these words on the smokebox, and the name stuck. At 1,250,000 pounds total weight and 132 feet long, these behemoths were capable of producing nearly 7,000 horsepower. 25 of them were produced. Amazingly, 8 of them survived, scattered in various museums across the country, which is an incredible amount for any single class of steam locomotive in the U.S. For the 150th anniversary celebration of the completion of the first Transcontinental Railroad, Union Pacific reacquired Big Boy number 4014 from the fairgrounds in Pomona, California, towed it to their shops in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and restored it to operation for a system-wide tour. In October 2019, it was scheduled to run through southern Arizona on the famed Sunset Route, on its way between Los Angeles and El Paso. My family and I caught up with the 4014 while on a layover day in Tucson, Arizona. The locomotive and train were on display at the Tucson yards. We had to wait in a line of automobile traffic for an hour just to get into the secured area. Someone estimated the crowd at 10,000 people. We waited another hour to go through the 85-foot display car. The following morning, the 4014 was scheduled to depart Tucson for Lordsburg, New Mexico. Having lived in Tucson 20 years ago, I knew one of the most scenic highlights would be Cienega Creek, about 15 miles east of town. Here, the old Southern Pacific line snakes its way through a riparian canyon, while the newer El Paso and Southwestern line crosses above on a high trestle. Both lines are now operated by Union Pacific as separated double track. I didn't want to miss the shot at Cienega Creek and expected it to be a popular viewing location, so I planned a time to wake everyone up, have a leisurely breakfast at the hotel, and arrive at enough time to set up a good photo shot. However, it didn't work out that way. The alarm didn't go off as planned, and I woke up at the same time the Big Boy was scheduled to depart Tucson yards. We all quickly jumped up, dressed, and checked out of the hotel while grabbing any quick-to-go items off the breakfast buffet. As I approached the highway bridge at Cienega Creek, there was a line of cars parked along both sides of the road. That was at least a good sign. If the train had gone by already, the cars would be cleared out. We had to park a ways away, but my son and I hoofed it down to the bridge as fast as we could. Luckily for us, the train had been delayed getting out of town. But even with our late start, we still had to wait over a half hour for the train to arrive. But it was spectacular to watch the articulation of the big locomotive as it snaked its way on the circuitous path along the riverbank. After the train went by, we went back to our car and followed the line of traffic heading east. My son looked out his window and exclaimed, "There's an Amtrak train!" Apparently, the eastbound Sunset Limited had crossed the high bridge on the more direct route over the canyon, only missed by about 15 minutes from having a once-in-a-lifetime over-under shot. The Big Boy was scheduled to make a stop in Benson, Arizona. Once we made it out to the interstate, it was easy to get ahead of the steamer. When we arrived in Benson, the Amtrak train was making its station stop. The Big Boy arrived a little later. The crowd was huge. I waited just past the station to get a shot of the engine accelerating out of town. After that, the highway and tracks separate for a while, but you can reconnect at a remote town called Dragoon. When we arrived, again there were people everywhere, so I decided to follow the road out of town and find a more secluded location. The next scheduled stop for the train was Wilcox. Our detour to Dragoon put us way off path, so there was no way to beat the train. But I wasn't worried because I knew they would be stopped here for a while and we could catch up. Again, huge crowds looked over the engine as the crew performed their routine maintenance. An old frontage road where the tracks crossed under the interstate was the next photo location. Here the Big Boy had just passed a westbound stack train. The train made another stop in Bowie, Arizona. I decided to pass the public stop and set up again outside of town. An eastbound stack train ran around the passenger excursion during the layover. After that, the Big Boy arrived. These images were taken looking across the interstate from a rest area, while the big boy passed along westbound manifest train. The next location was near a place called Steins, which is right on the Arizona-New Mexico border. The tracks snaked their way up grade here through a small pass before descending onto a large dry lake bed. Finally, the train arrived in Lordsburg mid-afternoon.